Test. Mic test. All right. So, this is a new little series that I'm trying out, cutting at the broken machine. Basically, it's kind of like I was just thinking of trying a new way of helping myself in the editing process. Because it can, with some projects and like this current one that I'm working on, it can get a bit trying. And in this case, it's my own fault. This is a. I'll get into what exactly this project is today, but I think it'll help me to kind of talk it out and, if anything, have something to look back in the future and be able to see whether I've made any progress or not. So I thought I might as well stream it since I've got the gear here at the Broken Machine. The Broken Machine is a studio in Singapore, and I shuttle back and forth working in the project ARER, the band, and it's a sound project. We put up art performances, we make standard releases, albums, EPs. In fact, we've got an Australian tour coming up. Tour in Australia coming up at the end of July this year. So in the meantime, I make films as well, and so I've got a bunch of gear sitting around, and so I thought I might as well try this series out. So for today, I'm getting to what cutting at a broken machine is. Basically, I'm just going to edit as usual and talk myself through it, and to anyone who might be interested. I do editing as a job, as well as independently with these independent films. So for today, we're working on a film in a series under Emoumie Pictures. The YouTube channel is in the link on the Twitch page. It's called Films or Archives, and this is a film that's in a global world documentary series called Picture Houses, and basically it's a series that captures different cinemas around the world today, or as I encounter them on my travels. It really started right here in Singapore when I interviewed the contractor that was working on an old local cinema here in Singapore, the Golden Theatre, when it was being revamped to accommodate a new large cinema that screens Tamil films, Rex Cinemas. So that was really a very short impromptu documentary that was made, and that kind of sparked the idea of looking out for cinemas, independent cinemas mainly, wherever I go around, whenever I travel, and just popping by asking questions about cinema to the staff or whoever I find myself speaking with. And so today, this particular project is featuring let me just find the image. It should be here. Come on, you can do it. Yes, so today this particular film features Cinema Paradiso. It's a cinema in Wanaka, New Zealand, and I was traveling there at the end of 2015. I had my tripod with me on that day, but The moment he said, "Yes, you can film here," I got too excited and I forgot to bring my tripod along, which is why I started this stream talking about some more trying projects, and this is kind of one of them in the sense that I am at this point right now not very happy with how I shot the thing. I think I could have done a lot better, and it just makes it exasperating for me as the editor of the film in post. But having said that, I do think that that's part of the whole point of kicking this series off, or it was the starting point of the series, in that I did not want to call ahead to schedule interviews with places. I wanted the very in the moment essence of it, which obviously most filmmakers would be frowning at hearing that. But there is something to it, maybe not exactly best shown in this film, or hopefully so. Hopefully it can be seen. But there is something, I think personally, as an independent filmmaker, to this not too set up kind of interviews, and basically treating it more like a conversation with someone that I've just met. So yeah, it's not. I'm not really a fan of making films that who not really a fan of making films with the sole intention of entertaining someone. So I kind of stay away from the advice to cut these documentary films down to 3 or 4 minutes, because I don't think that would allow myself as the filmmaker to convey the essence of the conversation that I had with this human individual on my travels. I think 10 minutes is short enough, and that's fairer to the person with whom I had a conversation with, and it feels better to me in terms of conveying the essence of the conversation, be it about in this series cinemas, or in another series, another encounter, an essence about themselves. So let's go into the editing process here. Basically, I am halfway through editing this film at the moment, and I was kind of getting a little sluggish, and a little frustrated at the process, mainly because of my errors in the shooting 2 years ago. So every time I open the project, I'm just wondering, how do I start? Okay, so let's recalibrate here. Let's go over what I've done so far. There are color codes to the clips, and the main working area that I'm working with is here. I could be more organized, and sometimes I just don't really care too much. It's not the best. It's not the best thing to do, but it works well enough. So all of these clips over here, they are all B-roll for me to use, and everything up to this point between this highlighted area is the working cut. So give me a second. Oops. Let's see if we can check anything over here. Oof. Oops. Not mean to open that. All right. Hmm. All right. Okay. Got it. All right. So the color codes. So on video 1, this timeline, that's all the interview. And okay. And under the interviews with Garrick Cameron, who is the manager of Cinema Paradiso. There he is. I've color coded them as follows. So the mint colored clips, they are clips that deal with the technical aspects of the cinema, and the purple clips here, they deal with the history of the cinema, how it got started, its beginnings. And I left blue the ones that I find interesting, kind of are not directly related to the cinema, but are more interesting to me in a conversation about cinema. And I think this one at the beginning, it's just I was too lazy to color code it and left it as is because it worked in the intro. So that's how I've color coded it so far. And as you can see, the interview is cut up. So basically, whenever there are long pauses between, like me, for example, going yeah, all this stuff. I leave them in sometimes for the flow of the speech to be more natural, and sometimes I take them out just to allow the point that is being made to be conveyed accurately. Accurately is not exactly the right word to use, but I was just thinking about this process, and I'm talking a lot here before I even get into the editing, because I'm just setting things up for anyone who hasn't been sitting right next to me the whole time I've been cutting everything to this point. Basically, I think of it this way, that when I was there sitting in front of Garrick and speaking with him, I'm sure there are these natural pauses when people talk, especially when they aren't trained speakers. And for me as a whole, the conversation could sidetrack and it could jump from point to point. But being the person that was sitting there in the room speaking with this person in that natural way, I think your brain synthesizes the conversation, and so you make the kind of mental timeline of whatever the person in front of you is talking about. And I think that's not the same for creating a film and presenting it, or watching a film that is being presented to you. It's not exactly the same conversational relation between the two. And so that's where I think film editing helps to kind of create that flow synthetically, to help a viewer along, or not really to help a viewer along, but to more accurately convey the content of the conversation. And this is pertaining to documentary films and interviews. Maybe to me, maybe it's more accurately conveying the essence of the conversation for someone who was not actually speaking to the person, especially since it's literally a screen that you're watching, and it's a way of synthetically reproducing that relation, or that kind of information exchange, if you will. Yes, and that is the reason for these cuts and these shifts. For example, he might have said something technical about the cinema somewhere here in the beginning, but in terms of sitting in a different time and in a different space and watching this conversation, it might not make too much sense for if and especially when one isn't hearing the questions that were posed to Garrick. It becomes very disorienting and hard to follow, basically. So these shifts are there to kind of recreate that conversational relation. Yeah, and so once I've set up like right now, I've set up the interview in a way that is somewhat in the order that I think I like the film to flow through. Once I've done that, I then go over to B-roll, which I have under my edits as this is not very orderly, but it worked well enough for me. And so I got this string out in which I have all the B-roll that I dump into the timeline, and then I make little cuts out of each clip, like so. So and this is on Premiere Pro, and make cuts here and here, and then I put them up on the second timeline, and slowly work your way through every clip. And once I've got all the usable clips, I take them and I put them on a new timeline, but I'll just do it here. And there they are. They're all just there with all these gaps in between. And then I go to create a color matte in my project, and I stretch this color matte across, select all the clips, bring them into the color matte, bring them back down. Oops, oh no, sorry. And then you select all the clips, and I bring them up into the color matte and down. And now the color matte has these gaps that match the clips, and I select all these gap laden color matte clips, whatever, and go to ripple delete. And there, they've consolidated all the usable clips. And then I take these clips and then I copy them over to the main timeline that I'm editing with. And they'll be dumped here and here. They'll be all consolidated first. And then what I did was to color code all the landscape, town, drive-through clips like this. And yes, on the video quality, it plays back on a quarter resolution just to help the computer to not be working too hard. And another thing to note is that these slow motion clips, back then I was not working with this setup and was worried that 4K clips would not be able to play on my previous setup, not knowing that actually the GH4 4K clips are quite what's the word for it? They run quite well on most editing rigs. Maybe like what's I was gonna say, like 16 gigs and RAM and above. 8 gig, sorry, 8 gig RAM and above. Currently I'm using a 16 gig RAM setup. Of course there are many other factors, but yeah. And so I shot everything on 1080, which is not great, at least for the GH4, because I mean it's fine, it works well enough. But I think if I can help it, the 4K just it looks better. And it gives you some leeway to punch in, etc. And the 96 variable frame rate setting on the GH4, I only later realized that it doesn't come out too well, the image. You can read about this on Google, you can search about it. There are a lot of this like artifacting and stuff. It goes on. So I'd rather use the 1080 60p setting for slow-mo these days, unless you really desperately need to capture the 96 frames per second kind of slow-mo, but you're sacrificing quality. It's semi-negligible for a YouTube film. Bad Wi-Fi on my phone. Shit. Okay, anyways. God damn it. Okay. Yes, and then I moved the B-roll over the interviews as in where they work. So the last time I was editing, what happened was I stumbled upon a long clip here. And, you know, maybe something else I could do is sometimes I just play through the beginning and play through some of these little sequences, as you can see, like here, 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 and here. They are, I use the interview as kind of the points which they're mentioning as a kind of a marker, like a chaptering of where the film is going, and it helps me to kind of select the B-roll to place over each little sequence. So sometimes coming to the project, it's kind of overwhelming. I can't really remember every single cut that I've made and where I'm going with the whole thing, or how it's gonna, you know, I mean, especially with this old project where I was less prepared in the sense of when I was shooting, it was just capturing everything, and nowadays I think it's much easier because I kind of have a rough idea of where everything is going. So that's what makes this project a little trickier, because I wasn't as conscious when I was shooting. But anyways, I played from the beginning just to get right back into the flow. Placeholder music. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's checking. So at this point, this is kind of just placeholder. I might leave it in. I'm not sure, because he's talking about the owner of Cinema Paradiso and how it all began from the beginning. And I'm just not sure if I might want to include other pictures or footage from elsewhere with the owner and the early beginnings. Of course, that would involve thinking about the copyright and whether it's fair use or not, and whether I want to get into that and deal with it, or I could just use footage like the town as a way to hopefully try to still express the same thing, or be a kind of suitable background in this setting up of the history. So I'm really leaving this whole mini sequence here for the last thing to deal with, so that I can look through whatever B-roll I haven't used that would be essential to the other sequences at the end, and have a whole arsenal of stuff that I could try. So moving on to the next little mini sequence. I'm kind of curious as to why there's a little chunk here. Right. I was thinking music can come in. The other thing was because I've been realizing that some of the points are so close together that you can hardly set it up in images before it goes to a next like a next crucial point. And that makes it really hard to kind of set up the space. For example, if he's talking about them moving to the current space, I can hardly show the space before he moves on to over here. You'll see. Before moving on to specifics. So what I'm trying here is to have him do this. And then music comes on. And we kind of set up the space. And then music can continue or fade out, I'm not sure, we'll see. And then he continues elaborating. So that might flow, I think. Perhaps. And then during the last edit, this was just general B-roll with ambient sound. Sometimes I like to put them in between the interviews to kind of have a little breather, kind of because once again, it's a different experience for someone watching the film as compared to when I was there and walking around the space um, before having a conversation with him. And so having these um, kind of little sequences where they cut away from the interview and we just breathe a little bit in the space, I think it helps to helps to convey the conversation as well, in setting up this space that the conversation is being had within. And so on the last edit, I just had little ambient sound B-roll clips like these two, and then I found another clip which had a long little conversation going on between him and a customer. So I thought that was interesting, and now I would capture more of that, but then well, luckily I did think enough to capture it as it happened. But I think that as I went along, I realized that I now would like more to, aside from the interview, also capture these moments that happen within the space, at least in regard to this series that this film is a part of, Picture Houses at Emoumie Pictures, to kind of also set up the not different, but the specific dynamics and conversations that take place within various cinemas around the world. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the conversation. I'm not sure if it can be heard very well in the stream, but the conversation is about the seats, because throughout this film you'll learn that the Cinema Paradiso has these interesting seats in their cinema, and so very relevant and very interesting, I find, and not something that we specifically talked about in the interview. So that was nice, having captured that. I kind of like that. Give me a sec. All right, back. Just get some water. And from that, we can then transition back into the interview. The other thing is, between kind of playing it safe during the edit and doing more drastic things, like kind of connecting these mini sequences together, because it's not so much that I think it's more that I'm kind of sometimes afraid that I'll be too lazy to revisit it, so I like to leave them disconnected and slowly chip away at them as I go along. But right now I think there are more than 10 of these independent documentaries and narrative films here at the Broken Machine with Emoumie Pictures. So there comes a point when it's like more films are being shot with an idea, and the edit is not going fast enough to output stuff that one is shooting. So sometimes it's a good idea, I feel, for me, to just make that connection like right now. And if there really is a mistake, we can revisit it again down the line in future cuts. But if they work well enough, sometimes that's what it is. It's kind of having things that work well enough, which also speaks to the nature of this whole particular film in the series. Despite its flaws in terms of the shots and my lack of preparedness, the I like to at least get stuff out, even if they might not be my best work at the moment. They might not represent me in the best, in the most perfect way, etc., or represent the place in the most perfect way. It's a learning process, and just like this stream, there might be technical issues. I might be not actually working on the edit enough, or whatever it be. And this whole edit might not be the best work I've ever done, but that's the whole reason for this stream as well. It's also a long learning process. It's continuing to make work and produce and to have output, and that becomes something that develops along the way. So my point was that yes, making this connection might be fine. If it doesn't work, you can change it down the line. And I'd still kind of get a little takeaway for myself mentally, in terms of, right, in the future I can kind of predict when it does or does not work and save myself some time in the process. But I've got to make that mistake first. Yeah, you get my point. Yep, super shaky shots. And I don't have specific shots of exactly what he's talking about, so I think this might work in the sense of just kind of looking at the cinemas in which this equipment that he's talking about is being used within. Just helps to add context to what he's saying. Yeah, I did notice that it looks like kind of a repeat shot between this and this. It's just like from a different position. So I might have to remove one of them. Of course, the problem would be, what do I then replace it with? So I really think this doesn't work with two of them, so I'd just take this one out first and worry about what to put over it next. But I think some of it is just trying to not look at the big picture, because at the beginning it's great to kind of lay the structure out and the general direction of the flow. But having done that, I not tend to, but I feel I notice that sometimes it becomes a little trap in itself, looking, at least for editing, not remaining too long in the big picture. It's hard to kind of just focus in on one little mini sequence and make sure the images work with that mini sequence, and then the next and the next and the next, and then worrying about how they have a handshake, how they click together, and then going back out into the big picture to refine how the whole piece works. That might be a way to kind of, for me at least, get me less stuck in, you know, because when I look at this, it kind of makes me get really panicky, like all these gaps, and I'm just not sure how it's all gonna work out. And it also helps to just go get a cup of tea and or hot chocolate or something, or coffee. But it's 2:30 a.m. here, so I don't want to get coffee right now. Got hot chocolate though. Yes, I believe I was already struggling with this particular mini sequence the last time, but let's try to see what comes out of it today. Probably nothing, but we'll see. So if I go back into the B-roll, I'm pretty sure that under the orange clips there wouldn't be anything that we want, because it's all establishing landscape, town shots. Right. These messy bits here are kind of during the last edits I found some clips that I thought would work for various sequences, and I put them up here just to kind of like in my mind prioritize them. So here we have another that same shot, which we're not gonna use. And let's see. Nope, no. This is not gonna work. So as I'm scrubbing through these clips, I'm thinking about what that specific point of the interview was covering, and he was talking about the system in the theaters, the sound system and the technology, and it's a shame that I did not shoot any kind of behind the scenes in this cinema like I did later. That was last year in Japan with an independent cinema in Tokyo. So, that would have been a more relevant but also interesting look at the cinema. But it's okay, you learn along the way. Yeah, just worried I've got nothing at all to put there. Come on. A whole load of seats in same areas. Oh, it's just some music I used to cut out and paste in the beginning. Blah blah blah. Let's see. Alright, and these are just good little connector ambient sound B-roll clips between interview points. Yeah, nice stuff like that, like making the popcorn. Yeah, just like day-to-day activity. There's people waiting. Not the best shot. Okay, and now... No, more of the same cinema. It can get quite frustrating, especially when you just don't have to... You gotta scrub through a lot of footage that doesn't work. So that's something that I've learned along the way, because it's really tiring in the edit, like right now. More of the same cinema. So 2 theaters, okay, yep, different couches, nice. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, maybe for Lisa. Oh my god. I might just have nothing that really works. Uh-oh. Yep. It looks like it might be a problem. So where was it again? It was over here. Okay. When all else fails, just hope that the interview has no cut points. And we just leave his face on for the whole segment, and hopefully, I can fix that down the line. I'm not sure how. I saw a clip with a slow-mo kind of pan across the whole cinema, and it was a really long clip, so worst case scenario, we'll just plonk the whole thing there and have a long, slow pan. Mainly because I sometimes I just don't really care about, as I mentioned earlier, pleasing the viewer, and I just think personally that it's an interesting point that he's talking about for someone who might be interested in pictures on different cinemas around the world. So I'd leave it in and not cut it out just because I don't have B-roll for it. It's maybe it's kind of the thing about, I don't really enjoy conversations where there must be something in it for the other party. I think that if I was interested to talk to someone, I'm interested in what they're saying, and I don't need a something in it for me to be listening to what someone's saying. And so for the viewer that might ask, why would I care about what this person is saying, I really don't have an answer, and they should not be watching the film, this film. And that's why at the beginning I was talking about not being interested to make films with the particular intent to entertain the viewer. These are documentary films for someone that is interested in the specific topic, which is not the way that I make all films. It's just regarding these documentary films as a kind of antithetical approach to the other side of the process in my filmmaking. Like with some narrative films, I enjoy the reactions of people, or I enjoy just pushing myself and pushing the picture in a way. But these films are made specifically with the intent of not being extremely prepared, and they are made with the intent of not being pieces of entertainment, but just documentary. And it doesn't matter if the image that goes over what the interviewee is talking about is literal. I think there is a it's a personal kind of approach and matter of expression in terms of how one deals with these ideas in film or filmmaking or editing, and I don't see the point in being abstract for abstraction's sake. What I'm saying is, I'm not too worried about being too literal, especially with these documentaries, since it is about what the person is talking about and is about trying to express the essence of what the encounter was about, the conversation was about, the person is about. And it doesn't have to be specifically artistic, and yet even in the moments that it does fall into the kind of artistic abstract expression of what the person is saying, it doesn't matter. There are no hard rules as to why something should or should not be there, at least for me, in terms of this film in this particular series. It should, at the end of the day, best convey what the person and the place is about. And it doesn't matter if the image is overly literal to what he's talking about, or if the image is more abstract. And it's also secondarily about this just production, just keeping oneself active in filmmaking, whether it be making these narrative pieces that really push the exercise of filmmaking for oneself personally, or if it's just pushing out a documentary series that makes sense or is about a topic that one is interested in exploring or interested in sharing or understanding. And yes, for me, this series about cinemas around the world, it's very secondarily, but primarily I've already explained what is the intent, but very secondarily and peripherally, it's about, just for me as a filmmaker, having a constant output, constantly working on something with something, whether it be in the main approaches that I enjoy, which is kind of working with more surrealist imagery, and then a more experimental approach, or sometimes in a more entertaining approach, or entertainment focus approach. Or if sometimes it's in an antithetical kind of approach in making something that's not entertaining. It's not short. It's kind of slightly dry, but it's, for me, it's not dry at all, because I am personally interested in this area. I'm interested in these ideas from these people that I meet. I'm interested in these spaces, and I want to know more. And so the various films do inform me constantly as I'm editing them and pushing out the films, and I really love sharing them with people, because having spoken with all these folks around the world, you realize that and this is part of another series called Another Encounter, but also related to this Picture Houses series. Yeah, but no, most everyone, despite their very personal stories and personal encounters and personal experiences, when they do get into talking about themselves, their lives, or something they're interested about, or something that they know more intimately than us, there are some interesting ideas that are quite informative. It's kind of a safer word but to use, but yeah, it's kind of interesting to me. Yeah, I thought that lingered too long on. I thought having that clip there as he's talking about hot cookies might lead one to just assume that the cookies are in the little thing here, and they're not. But I don't have a shot of that, so that works well enough. No one's going to know. And also because this film is made independently, it's mine to release on the Emoumie Productions YouTube page or anywhere that I want to. I like that freedom compared to making compared to working on commercials, or compared to doing editing as a job. I like the freedom to not do what is preferred or expected of an editor or as a filmmaker. I think a lot of people that have spoken to me about like if they've about some of these films, I don't know if they know that I kind of enjoy not cutting it down, and yes, that means that there will be lesser viewers, just like this stream. That means that there will be lesser viewers of the film, and it might not get anywhere, but that's the whole point. It's one's film to make and to learn from, or to express in the way that one desires, especially if you're not being paid for it, or there is no particular purpose for it. But I mean, generally speaking, or looking at it from a mainstream point of view, there is no purpose to it. Then you have one has the freedom to kind of make anything and try different things, try different durations, not having to cut every clip at 4 to 5 seconds or 3 seconds, and making it snappy, and and I get to use a whole bunch of classical music just because they're royalty free, not for any specific reason. I mean, they do sound good, and they really work sometimes in a very beautiful way. I make it a point to use one composer's works for each film, so they're consistent in the sense that if the piece has 6 whatever you call it movements, I'd use the various movements in the various parts of the film, so it's consistent sonically. And I'm just not a huge fan of modern trends in music, and I mean, saying this, it's also because we do music here at the Broken Machine with ARE, the band, a band called ARE, the band. You can find us on Facebook. And so I'm just not really a fan of the modern trends, and the whole thing with chill wave and whatnot. It sounds silly even just saying it, to me at least. And that whole ironic kind of thing, or trying to make everything really sexy and fast and loud, or whatever. Just not really my cup of tea. That being said, I'm not really a classical kind of guy either. I enjoy listening to it, and that's about as much that I can say about classical music. It's pleasant, I like bossa nova. It's pleasant, and it works really well with pictures, and sometimes I think it for specific films, it's more close to what I am trying to express, maybe something like that. And I just generally like a slower pace of the films, just having longer films. And I'm still struggling with the whole thing about, of course, no one's gonna watch it, no one's gonna spend their time on it. But does it really, really, really matter at the end of the day? Not sure, because at the end of the day, when I'm, I don't know, when I'm 59, when I'm 67, when I'm 72, will it matter whether, well, maybe it will, but it's just kind of, it'd be nice to know that I've made all these films, and it doesn't matter if anyone has watched them or not. That being said, still, one skill hopefully does improve with reflection upon it, and just working on it. So I'm not sure where everything is headed. I'm not sure where it's all going, but just doing it anyway. So moving on, leaving that whole chunk as is, just not much being done. I'll move on to the next little mini sequence here. Alright, this is about him. Alright. Yep, Wi-Fi is not really working very well on my phone, so I just assume everything is going fine with the stream. So what was the previous thing? Right, everything's handmade on the menu and people like it. Right, so it wouldn't make much sense to connect them directly, because it's like, you've got hot cookies, you've got everything's handmade on the menu, people like it, and then it doesn't make sense to immediately jump right over to I was a projectionist. Because that seems like a nice little chapter, like a new little sequence. So what I would like to do is to put a little connector between these two, which would be my ambient sound situational B-roll. And that would be something that I selected earlier. Let's try to find it. Here. All of these are nice little situational B-roll. So following from him talking about the handmade items in the menu, I guess making a bit of a mental leap, because yeah, it's not really handmade, blah blah blah, but yeah, I guess we could put this popcorn scene over there, and maybe just staff, daily work, chatting with the cat. Yeah, right. I might want to use this for some other parts, but at the moment it seems like this would work pretty well there. So let's give it a shot. It's over there. Okay. So just want to make sure there's nothing else on the timeline that I failed to select, because sometimes that happens once you have more tracks, at which point you could just expand this a little bit. Okay, so I move these back just a little bit, move this in, and this can be here. So let's see how it goes. Right, the ambient sound changes between these two clips, and I think this one matches the interview more. So I wonder if it would work just as well if I swap these two around. So it's kind of like imagining that this is menu talk and this is related to menu talk. So perhaps having this clip in the middle acts as that kind of like visually imagining a neon sign being turned off and having that little flicker before it turns off. Not that I know neon signs do that, but just imagining it visually. So perhaps having this little buffer between these two directly related clips does kind of mentally create that effect of a stutter, and then moving on from there into the new state, like a neon light moving to the state of being not it. Of course, lengths of the clips can be adjusted, so let's just take a look. Pour that in, and then we can cut right there. Come into the next mini sequence. Just a little overlap. Kind of has a smoother transition into the next segment of the interview. Right, seeing as he was in that previous shot, I'm just immediately thinking that we could extend that a little bit over into that first statement, or perhaps jumping right into the next B-roll related to what he's talking about. Yeah, perhaps. Just to give it a little kind of how would we say it? Dynamism? Is that a way you put it? See, it's a little long. Now let's see if it works. So, going back to menu talk. B-roll. Yeah, it's stuttering a little. It's not great. But you work with what you have. Generally, it works out well enough. Let's try 1/8. So, this is not really about technical aspects, despite it's color code. So I might not be very good at remembering. I might kind of sometimes just use them as cues. But, this is important in the beginning. Let's just solve it out right now. Since there's no other color here, I might as well just label it with a rose, because these are things that I find for myself particularly interesting, like this last sequence. Just finding out more about this man, and it's actually quite impressive. I never knew that projection existed kind of without bulbs and using this carbon arc. It's kind of interesting for me personally, and so that's why I love about this series as well. It's about cinemas, but it's also about the people in the cinema, working in the cinema, running the cinema, and just conversations that I personally enjoy having, listening back to. It still fascinates me as I'm listening to it. So I love it. So this was between two shots that kind of were similar. So this was the shot that I just played, and I think I will use for this segment. And previously, before I put this clip on top, it was this clip. Which is actually pretty similar in terms of the movement. So between this and this, so I like the clip that is on top more, just because visually it's kind of more dynamic with him popping up off a seat and walking, and also at the same time, since he's talking about the job role changing from that of the projectionist to also handling the food and beverage, multiple roles right now. So I thought, this quite literal image of him just clearing some of the cups after the screening does convey that idea more than this shot in which he's just walking. And that's why I made a choice for this particular shot. And so let's move this one out so we can neaten everything up just a little bit. There we go. So now we're just using two timelines here. Was confusing. And yes, let's go all the way to the end. We got a little ambient B-roll break. Coffee machine. And now we're going to just personal favorite talk. These are things that I love hearing from people who have been doing this for, who have been doing stuff related with film and video for, way longer than me, and it's just fascinating. Okay, right. At this point, is where sometimes, and because of again the problems of me not shooting it very well when I was there, uh, you know, I might want to get a little, trick, little fancier with this particular point in which I would have to write down a note somewhere because I'm super forgetful about these things. That I might want to shoot something here at the Broken Machine in the studio, like a macro shot or something, just to have a more accurate or a more, just to have a better image of what he's talking about there, instead of cutting back all the time to him where I don't have something relevant to place over it. Because he's talking about a projectors going from carbonite to light bulb use for projecting image, and I do have a 16mm projector here in the studio, so I might just shoot like a macro shot, with the machinery and the bulb, and have that go over there. But the only problem would be consistency of the image. Would that work? It might. If it's a macro shot, it might just work. And if it does not, then I guess we could leave just cutting back to the interview as like so. Yeah, and you see that happening. Let's see, we got a half. You can see over here on this screen, on the edges, it's kind of like you can see the interview going on behind this image, just ever so slightly here. And the reason for that is that I shot everything on 1080p, but I think I'm working on a timeline that is a 4K timeline. Just let me make sure. Let's go reveal in project. Oh no, you know what? I shot the interview in 4K. And what about the B-roll? Reveal in project. Did I think that it was saving space or something like silly like that then? But it looks like I shot the B-roll. Let's see. That's interesting. Some of the B-roll I shot in 4K and some I shot in 1080p. Regardless, still a lot of shaky shots there, just not great. But anyways, I think yep. But this one was the one in 96 frames per second, so it's in 1080. And so going back to what I was talking about earlier, with this weird line happening here, what I would have to do is and I'm not sure that I actually want this clip here, but what I have to do is go to 1 and let's see if it works. Yeah, because it's just this weird thing about 1080 clips being on 4K timelines. They don't completely cover the image area. So for every 1080 clip on a 4K timeline, I just gotta scale it up by just that one blip, like from 200. This was because this was in 1080 and putting in a 4K timeline, you gotta double up, and so the scale's gotta be twice that of the actual image. And even at twice, there's still gonna be that weird line thing going on where it doesn't cover the full image area. So you just gotta put 201. And the reason for doing this is that, especially when some of the clips are also in 4K, you can, or I can export a 4K film at the end of the whole edit and upload it to YouTube as a 4K video. Because this might be one of those things like mini DV to HD and HD 720 going to 1080p, and just thinking ahead, just like some Vimeo films have this weird, because they were uploaded in the past as a 720 film. So when they standardize everything to 1080, 720 films just are this like boxed films. So I'm just trying to avoid that in the future. So I just try my best to where I can export and upload everything as a 4K film. So when you play in 1080, it's not gonna make any difference. Less so when it's being played like on Facebook as a little attachment. So going back to the edit. Yeah, I might just wanna shorten this part and just leave it more on his face if we have to. Because I think what he's saying is fascinating. We're just not exactly sure right now what I would want to put over him talking about this. And maybe cutting back to him would be a good idea. Since exactly for me personally, I'm just interested in what he's talking about. Water. Oh my god, much better. All right. Okay, and at that point, music can come up, leading us into the final mini sequence, which is also the outro of the film. It'll be much better than that. And that music will probably go all the way to the end of the film, like a nice little upward movement or something. Again, not sure what I should put over this part. VR. Yeah, that's true. Ooh. Can I repeat shot there? Alright, let's move the kids up there. And that shot looks a lot like this shot. Because it's probably shot at the same time. Okay. We've got to swap this one out. Yeah, but it's looking slightly neater now. Or maybe it's just because my brain is making more connections between each mini sequence that it looks neater. I'm not sure. Let's just see if we can quickly swap out that clip. People shots, people in the cinema. People in the cinema, let's see. This might be one. Just interactions. Let's try it. The reason I'm yeah, that's what happens when you have a 1080 clip in a 4K timeline. It's 50%. And so we got to go to motion and scale it up. 201. There we go, and move that back to where we would like to swap it for the other clip. Here, we can move the clip here. Okay. Okay, right. So we could move this up here. And then the rest down there. Just a little less. Let's see. Okay. Maybe something like that. For now. Alright. And I am getting really sleepy here. So for today, I guess the little work we've done is basically getting the little work that I've done today, I think, is getting my head back into the space of this film in general, and looking through and understanding, okay, what footage I have, what footage I don't, where I might need to make sacrifices, compromises. Let me just neaten this up as I'm talking. And also making some of the connections between the mini interview sequences. So right now it's maybe a set structure in terms of the gaps and how much breathing room there is between each point, etc. And yeah, I think I'll call it a day for today. Let's see. We don't want that there. And this we can move out. Bring this down. Okay. Nice. Alright, so I think we'll call it a day for the stream. Great, I've got to end it in a very awkward way. Pulling up the OBS because it's on the same computer. Okay. And see ya.